Wei Jin had been a tattoo artist for 6 years. He was 28, worked at a small parlor in the eastern district of a city that had, for the past 3 years, been the only city he had lived in as an adult, and had, as of the Friday afternoon in question, been alone in the shop for the past 2 hours, cataloging a small consignment of new ink bottles that had arrived from a supplier he had never worked with before. The consignment had been sent by a supplier at a rural address he did not recognize. The invoice had been paid in advance by somebody who was not one of the parlor's regular clients. The bottles themselves were unlabeled, sealed with wax that carried a small pressed symbol Wei Jin did not, at first look, know how to read. The symbol, as he had turned the third bottle in his hand under the shop's afternoon light, resolved into a small stylized four-legged creature with a horn. A Qilin. He had, in his old life's design portfolio, drawn approximately 40 different Qilin. The Qilin was the auspicious creature of the Eastern mythology his grandmother had taught him as a child. He liked drawing them. He had, until the moment his eyes settled on the wax seal, not thought about Qilin in perhaps 4 months. He unsealed the bottle. The ink inside was, he saw as the wax gave, a very deep midnight color that had, under the shop's afternoon light, a faint green shimmer he had never seen in any ink before. He touched the ink with the tip of a small clean bamboo needle. In the standard way he tested a new pigment. The needle went into the ink. The ink, as he lifted the needle, climbed the bamboo shaft, past the tip, past his fingernails, past the knuckle of his index finger, and up his wrist. He did not have time to be alarmed. The room went very warm. The afternoon light through the shop window went very green. The counter he was standing at went, as he braced his hand on it, soft under his palm, the way something goes soft when it is not, in the sense you had been trusting it to be, a counter. Then the counter was not there. Then the shop was not there. Then a different room was, with a different light, and the smell of camphor, and, from somewhere close by, the sound of a very young man crying into a pillow. Part 1. The Defective. Chapter 1. The Third Son. The young man crying into the pillow was, by every immediate check Wei Jin was able to conduct across the first 2 minutes of finding himself lying on a small wooden cot in the corner of an unfamiliar room, himself. He sat up. The crying stopped. The body sat up before he told it to. The body was, as he assessed across the next 30 seconds, perhaps 16 years old. Thin, slight, not weak, precisely, but not fed enough to be strong. Pale skin, long fingers of a boy who had spent his whole life indoors doing calligraphy and reading. A red band of irritated skin across the inside of the left forearm. The red band was, at the borrowed memory's first drop, the site of the boy's family tattoo. The tattoo was, at the borrowed memory's second drop, the reason the boy had been crying into the pillow. Wei Jin, Lin Yao now, by the borrowed name that came with the memory drop, sat on the wooden cot and let the third and fourth memory drops settle. His name was Lin Yao. He was 16. He was the third son of the Lin Ducal house of the eastern capital. The Lin house was one of the 8 great families of the Imperial court. The Lin house's generational tattoo, the tattoo that every male born to the main line received at the age of 16, in the formal coming-of-age ceremony held at the family's ancestral temple, was the Imperial dragon. The Imperial dragon tattoo was, by the Empire's standing structure, the second highest generational tattoo in the country, behind only the Imperial family's own celestial dragon and ahead of the 6 other great families' generational animals. Every male born to the Lin main line, for 400 years, had received the dragon tattoo cleanly at their coming-of-age. Every male, until Lin Yao. Lin Yao's coming-of-age ceremony had been held 6 days ago at the ancestral temple. The ceremony had been attended by his father Duke Lin Bo, his mother Lady Han, his older brother Lin Su, 21, second son, and his oldest brother Lin Feng, 24, first son and heir, and, as required by the ducal protocol, approximately 80 senior members of the extended family. The ceremony's central act was the application of the family's generational ink to the inside of the boy's left forearm by the family's senior tattoo master, using the specific 3-hour needle sequence that had been passed down in the Lin family for 11 generations. When the sequence completed correctly, the ink formed, over the next 3 days, the family's dragon on the boy's forearm. When it did not complete correctly, the ink formed something else. The something else outcomes were, by the family's records, rare. Across 400 years, the something else outcomes had happened 3 times. Lin Yao was, as of the 3rd day after his ceremony, the 4th. The ink on his forearm had not, across the past 3 days, formed a dragon. It had formed a small brown blob that the family's senior tattoo master had, on the 3rd day at the 5th bell of afternoon, publicly assessed as a malformed dragon indicating an incomplete cultivation resonance in the boy's spirit meridian. The public assessment had, in the Ducal family's terms, meant that Lin Yao was defective. His father Duke Lin Bo had, at the assessment, said nothing. His mother Lady Han had, at the assessment, said nothing. His older brothers had, Lin Feng with the small, careful embarrassment of a first son who had suddenly become entirely his father's heir. Lin Su with the small, careful satisfaction of a second son whose own dragon tattoo had, at his ceremony 5 years ago, been assessed as promising rather than strong, said nothing. The 80 senior members of the extended family had said nothing. The senior tattoo master had, on his own initiative, formally recommended to Duke Lin Bo that Lin Yao be sent to the Lin family's cadet branch in the far western district of the capital to live out his life as a minor Lin family clerk on a small stipend, at a residence that would not require the Ducal family to publicly acknowledge his continuing existence. Duke Lin Bo had, on the 4th day, accepted the recommendation. The transfer had been scheduled for the 10th day. Lin Yao, the previous Lin Yao, the 16-year-old boy whose body Wei Jin was now in, had been given the 6 days between the assessment and the transfer to say his goodbyes to the ducal residence, to gather his personal effects, and to accept the finality of the arrangement. He had spent the 6 days, by the borrowed memory's careful filing, mostly in his own room, mostly on the small wooden cot, mostly crying into the pillow. He had, in the past 6 days, seen only one person from the ducal family. The one person was his older sister Lin Mei. Lin Mei was 18. She was the second daughter of the Lin house. Her own coming of ink had, 2 years ago, produced the family's dragon tattoo cleanly, at the level assessed as promising. She had, since her ceremony, been attending the Imperial Academy of Ink Cultivation in the Western District of the capital as a mid-tier student of the 2nd-year class. She had, across the past 6 days, come to Lin Yao's room every evening at the 7th bell to sit with him for an hour and to say very little, because she had, by the borrowed memory's careful filing, been carrying, at 18, the specific quiet grief of an older sister whose younger brother was about to disappear from her family's official records and whose own dragon tattoo had, by the family's standing structure, made her powerless to prevent it. Wei Jin, Lin Yao, now, sat on the small wooden cot in the small quiet room of the ducal residence's 3rd floor and let the 6th and 7th memory drops finish settling. He looked at his own left forearm. The forearm had, on its inner side, the crusted red band the previous Lin Yao had been rubbing raw for the past 3 days. He looked closely at the band. Under the crust, under the small, careful raw skin the boy had been scratching, was, by the specific dark green shimmer visible at the band's edges in the afternoon light through the small window, an ink that was, by every red Wei Jin's 6 years of professional experience with tattoo pigments could apply, not the malformed dragon the senior tattoo master had publicly declared it to be at the 5th bell of the 3rd day. It was the ink from the unlabeled bottle in the small parlor in the eastern district of the city where Wei Jin had, at some indeterminate hour ago, touched a small clean bamboo needle to a very deep midnight pigment with a faint green shimmer. The ink had, by every read, followed him. It had settled, in this body, on this forearm, in the shape the family's senior tattoo master had declared a malformed dragon. Wei Jin, on the wooden cot, said out loud in the 16-year-old voice of the body he had been dropped into, "Oh." He stood up. He walked, slowly, to the small standing mirror on the wooden shelf by the room's western wall. He looked at the mirror. The face was a boy's face. 16. Thin. High cheekbones. Dark eyes that had, for the past 3 days, been red at the corners from crying. The face was, by the borrowed memory's read of it in the mirror, the face of a boy who had until this hour never in his life been described by anyone in his family as anything other than the third son. Wei Jin, Lin Yao, turned his arm over in the mirror's light. He looked at the red band on the inner forearm. He said, very quietly, in the 16-year-old voice, "You are not a malformed dragon." He pressed, very gently, at the raw skin at the band's edge. The skin, under the pressure of his own finger, parted slightly. The dark green ink, under the surface, glowed for approximately half a second. The glow was the specific low, steady glow that the borrowed memory registered as the standard active ink glow of a family generational tattoo whose owner had, at some point in his life, learned to draw from it. The previous Lin Yao had never, by the borrowed memory, glowed the tattoo. The senior tattoo master's assessment had said the boy's spirit meridian was incomplete. The incomplete meridian had, in the family's understanding, been the reason the ink had formed malformed. The glow on the inner forearm at the second bell of morning of the 5th day after the ceremony contradicted both statements. The tattoo was active. Wei Jin, at the mirror, felt the shape of the glow through the skin. The shape was, by every read his 6 years of professional needlework could give him, not a dragon at all. The shape was four-legged. It had a horn. It had a small serpentine tail. It had, at the specific pressure point below the wrist, a small precise ridge along its spine that was, by the specific shape of it, the crest of a Qilin. Wei Jin looked at the mirror. He said, very quietly, "Oh." He lowered his sleeve. He sat back on the wooden cot. He said out loud, in the 16-year-old voice, in the small quiet room, "Okay, Lin Yao, we are going to be, for the record, the fourth." The fourth transferred to the Western Cadet Branch on the 10th day. Wei Jin, inside the fourth, had 5 days to think about how to prevent the transfer. He thought about it. At the 7th bell of that evening, his sister Lin Mei came into the room, as she had for the past 5 nights. He was, when she came in, ready for her. Chapter 2. Lin Mei. Lin Mei was tall for 18. She had the long, thin lines of a mid-tier ink cultivator whose second-year training at the Imperial Academy had recently begun to shape her physically. Her hair was up in the plain scholars not the Academy required for its students. Her outer robe was the pale green of the second-year cohort. She wore, on her collar, the small silver pin of a mid-tier disciple. She came into the room at the 7th bell. She stopped, in the room's doorway, at the same specific stopping point she had used for the past 5 nights, 3 paces inside the door, at the small hard chair she had used for the previous evening sits. She sat. She said, in the small, careful voice she had used for the past 5 nights, "Yao." He looked up at her from the wooden cot. He said, in the 16-year-old voice, in a tone she had not heard from him in the past 5 nights, "Mei." She blinked. She said, "Yao? You are not crying." He said, "I am not crying." She said, "Yao? It is. The transfer is in 5 days." "It is. I understand if you are not. But the previous nights, you have been." He said, "Mei, stop. Sit closer. I have, since the 3rd bell of morning today, figured something out. I need to tell you what I figured out. The telling will take approximately 20 minutes. I need you to listen without interrupting, because if you interrupt in the middle, the whole telling will fall apart, and I will lose the courage to finish it. Please, sit closer." She looked at him for a long count in the room's lamplight. She stood up from the small hard chair. She walked to the wooden cot. She sat at the cot's foot at 3 feet from him. She said, in the same small, careful voice, "Yao, I am listening." He told her. He told her, in the plain 16-year-old voice of the body he was in, the shortest true version of what had happened. He told her about the tattoo parlor in the eastern district of the city he had, in his old life, worked at. He told her about the unlabeled bottle. He told her about the Qilin wax seal. He told her about the dark green shimmer. He told her about the counter going soft under his palm. He told her that he had, when he had woken in this body 6 hours ago, understood that the body's spirit was, by every read the borrowed memory could give, no longer inside the body. He told her that he was not, by any measure of who he had been for the past 28 years, the Lin Yao who had cried into the pillow for the past 5 nights. He told her that the ink on his own left forearm was, by every read his 6 years of professional tattoo work could give him, not a malformed dragon. He rolled up his sleeve. He pressed the raw skin at the band's edge. The glow, for the specific half-second, appeared on the forearm. The glow was the ridged 4-legged horn shape. Lin Mei, at the foot of the cot at 3 feet, went very still. She said, in a voice that was smaller than any voice he had heard her use across 5 nights, "Yao. That is Yao. That is not a dragon." He said, "No." She said, "That is a Qilin." He said, "Yes." She said, "The Qilin has not appeared as a generational tattoo in this country in 470 years. The last recorded Qilin bearer was, by the Imperial Academy's standing records, the founding emperor of the previous dynasty, Emperor 1. His Qilin tattoo was, by the same records, the tattoo that made him the founding emperor. The Qilin's specific abilities, Yao, are, by the same records, the strongest defensive and healing abilities of any known generational tattoo. Emperor Wen's Qilin was the reason his dynasty held the country for 240 years. The Qilin's abilities have not been available to any bearer in the 470 years since. The Imperial Academy's ink taxonomy officially classifies the Qilin as an extinct pattern. He looked at her across the 3 feet. He said, "May." "Yes." He said, "The ink is not extinct. It found its way into a small, unlabeled bottle in a tattoo parlor in a city on a different world. It followed the mind of a 28-year-old tattoo artist into a 16-year-old body in a ducal residence in this city. The ink is, as of the 3rd bell of morning today, on my left forearm. The senior tattoo master's assessment of my ceremony was wrong. The transfer to the Western Cadet branch is, as of tonight, a piece of paperwork that will, if it is filed on the 10th day, transfer the only living Qilin bearer in this country to a small clerkship in the far western district. The paperwork has to not be filed." Lin Mei looked at him across the 3 feet in the lamplight for a very long count. She said, in the small, careful voice, "Yao." "Yes." She said, "The story you have just told me is, by every measure of my academy training, impossible." He said, "I know." She said, "The ink on your forearm is, by my own eyes, a Qilin." He said, "I know." She said, "If I choose to accept the story, I will be, as of this hour, the only person in this country who knows that the Qilin has returned. If I choose to accept the story, I will need to help you, Yao, prevent the transfer. If I help you, I will be, by the family's standing structure, actively opposing my own father's public decision on your future. My father does not, Yao, accept opposition from his daughters, no matter how well-founded. If I help you, and the help is discovered, I will lose, at the minimum, my academy standing, my personal stipend, and my future prospects for a formal marriage." He looked at her. He said, very quietly, "May, I am not, for the record, asking you to help me prevent the transfer." She looked at him. She said, "You are not." He said, "I am asking you to help me change the transfer's shape. The senior tattoo master's assessment cannot, by the family's standing structure, be publicly reversed. The transfer to the cadet branch is going to happen. What I am asking, May, is for you to help me arrange the transfer in a specific way that permits me to, from the cadet branch, quietly attend a specific institution that will, across the next 3 years, give me the training I need to eventually reveal the Qilin publicly on my own terms. The specific institution is, May, the Imperial Academy of Ink Cultivation. Your academy. I am asking whether the academy admits students who are formally attached to a cadet branch of a great family rather than the main line. Lin Mei looked at him across the 3 feet. For a long count, she did not move. She said, the academy admits students from cadet branches. The specific admissions program is called the cadet track. The cadet track admits students of the 8 great families who did not qualify for the mainline track at their coming of age. The cadet track has, since the academy's founding 200 years ago, produced approximately 4% of the academy's graduates. Its graduates are, Yao, historically the academy's most quietly effective. 2 of the country's current senior court advisors are cadet track graduates. My own academy's senior instructor of the second-year cohort, Master Song, was, before her elevation to the academy's faculty, a cadet track graduate from the Yun family's Western Cadet branch. The cadet track's admissions, Yao, are held every year in the 6th month. The next admissions are in 3 months. The cadet track's entry examination is, I am going to be honest with you, substantially more difficult than the mainline tracks. The examination requires the candidate to demonstrate active ink control on the specific day of the examination in the presence of the Academy's admissions panel. If the candidate cannot demonstrate, Yao, active ink control on the day, the candidate does not enter. He said, the active ink control demonstration. What does it require? She said, the demonstration requires the candidate to activate the family generational tattoo at will, hold the activation for a specific technical exercise the panel selects on the day, and then deactivate on command. The tattoo does not need to demonstrate any specific advanced ability. It only needs to demonstrate, Yao, active control. He said, May, my tattoo activates when I press the skin at the band's edge. I can, by the read I have of it, activate it deliberately. Whether I can hold it for a specific technical exercise, I do not yet know. I have, as of this hour, 6 hours of familiarity with the tattoo. I have 3 months until the examination. If you are willing, May, I would like to spend those 3 months preparing for the examination at whatever pace you can privately supervise at the cadet branch's small residence after the transfer. If I pass, May, I will, at the 6th month, be a first-year cadet track student at the Imperial Academy. If I do not pass, I will remain in the cadet branch as a clerk. Either outcome is acceptable. The transfer will happen either way. I am, May, asking for the 3 months of preparation. If you can give them, I would like to try. She looked at him for a long count. She said, very quietly, Yao. Yes. She said, the 3 months are, for the record, mine to give. I can visit the Western Cadet Branch 3 times a week under the standard Academy Cadet Track Advisors Protocol, which was established for exactly this kind of arrangement between mainline and cadet track family members. The advisor visits are not, Yao, a violation of family protocol. They are, in fact, considered by the family's older matrons to be a small, quiet act of familial grace by a mainline sister toward a cadet track brother. I have, Yao, been carrying, for the past 3 days, the very quiet wish that I could offer you something like this. I did not, until tonight, think I could offer it. I am, as of tonight, offering it. 3 months. I will visit 3 times a week. I will supervise your preparation. If you pass, we will together arrange your entry into the academy. If you do not pass, we will, Yao, build the second plan then. He looked at her across the 3 feet in the lamplight. He said, very quietly, May, Yes. He said, "Thank you." She said, "Do not thank me. Start preparing. Roll up your sleeve. Show me the tattoo again. I want to look at it in the standard academy method." He rolled up his sleeve. She leaned forward on the cot. She examined the tattoo in the standard academy method, which, by the borrowed memory, involved pressing the pads of 2 fingers along the band's edge at 4 specific pressure points around the tattoo's 4 cardinal sides. She pressed each of the 4 points. The tattoo glowed, for the 4 half seconds, in the 4 cardinal patterns, in the specific ridged 4-legged horned shape. She sat back. She said, in the small, careful voice, "Yao." "Yes." She said, "That is a Qilin." He said, "Yes." She said, "It is, by every reed the Academy has taught me, a formed Qilin, not a partial, not a malformed. A formed Qilin at the 2nd stage of activation, on the forearm of a 16-year-old boy who has, until 3 days ago, never been outside this residence for longer than a formal ceremony." He said, "Yes." She said, "Yao? The Imperial Academy, if it saw this tattoo, would not admit you to the cadet track. It would admit you to the Masterline track. The Masterline track is the Academy's most senior track. It has, in 200 years, admitted 7 students. The Masterline track is, by the Academy's founding statutes, reserved specifically for bearers of what the statutes call the Imperial patterns. The Qilin is, by name, one of the Imperial patterns. Yao, the Academy would not give you a stipend. It would, by the statutes, pay you a stipend that is approximately 40 times the standard mainline stipend. The Academy would not give you a shared dormitory. It would give you the small private pavilion at the Academy's eastern hill that has, for 200 years, been kept empty for the specific eventual admission of a Masterline student. The Academy, Yao, would arrange your cadet branch paperwork to be quietly reversed at the Imperial Court within a week of your entrance examination, because the Imperial Court's own standing structure requires that a Masterline student of an Imperial pattern be recognized as a full mainline member of his own house. He looked at her. He said, very quietly, "May, that is a great deal to hold on the 3rd night of my new life in this body." She said, in the same small, careful voice, "Yao, I am not, for the record, going to tell you all of this at once again. I am telling you tonight because you asked whether the Academy admits cadet branch students. The cadet track is your fallback. The Masterline track is, Yao, what your Qilin actually qualifies you for. The examination for the Masterline track is held on the same day as the cadet track examination. It is held in a separate small chamber by a separate senior panel. If you are willing to reveal the Qilin at the examination, you will be, Yao, admitted to the Masterline track by the Academy's own statutes, and your cadet branch transfer will be reversed within the week." He said, "May, if I reveal the Qilin at the examination, my father will know within a week. My brothers will know within a week. Every senior member of the extended family who was present at my coming of ink will know within a week. Some of them, by the borrowed memory of the past 3 days, are going to be very unhappy about the reveal. The unhappy ones will attempt, in various small, careful ways, to prevent me from occupying the position the Academy's statutes will place me in. Some of the attempts will be, May, dangerous." She looked at him across the cot. She said, very quietly, "Yao, the unhappy ones will include our brother Lin Su, who has, for the past 3 days, been quietly satisfied about your removal because it makes his own second son position more secure. The unhappy ones will also include the 6 senior tattoo masters of the extended family, who were all present at your coming of ink and who all, publicly, on the 3rd day at the 5th bell, signed the assessment of malformed dragon. A reversal of the assessment would end their reputations. The unhappy ones will not include our father Duke Lin Bo, who is, by my own read of him for 18 years, the sort of man who reorganizes his read of a situation faster than any of his senior tattoo masters can. The father will be, on hearing the news, pleased. The father will publicly reverse the transfer, publicly promote the assessment's reversal, and publicly present the Qilin's return as the Lin house's great achievement in the current generation. The father's public presentation will provide you the specific senior political cover you will need against the unhappy ones. The father's cover will be Yao, the specific thing that keeps you alive across the following year. He looked at her across the cot in the lamplight. He said, very quietly, May, you have, in 20 minutes, completely reorganized my red of the coming 3 months. She said, in the small, careful voice, Yao. That is what an older sister who happens to be a second-year academy cadet is for. He almost laughed. He said, in the 16-year-old voice, May, I am, as of tonight, going to want you at my shoulder for the coming 3 years. Whatever the coming 3 years become, I am asking, tonight, whether the shoulder is available. She looked at him. She said, very quietly, Yao, the shoulder is available. Do not, as of tonight, send me to bed without giving me the first small, careful exercise you can hold the Qilin's activation on. I would like to see the tattoo hold for at least 60 seconds before I go home. The 60-second hold will tell me, by the standard academy diagnostic, approximately how much preparation the 3 months will require. He held the tattoo's activation for 60 seconds while she watched. He held it for 90 seconds while she watched again. He held it for 180 seconds while she watched a third time. At the 180-second hold, she stood up from the cot. She said, in her working academy voice, Yao, the 3 months will be, by my honest read, sufficient. You will pass the examination. The examination will admit you to the masterline track. The reversal will follow. Sleep. I will visit tomorrow at the 7th bell of evening for the first supervised session. Do not, Yao, activate the tattoo alone tonight. The ink is settling. It needs the night to consolidate. He said, I will not activate it alone tonight. She said, good. She walked to the door. At the door, she stopped. She looked back at him. She said, very quietly, Yao. He said, May. She said, the Lin Yao who cried into the pillow for the past 5 nights was my brother. I loved him. I have, across the past 5 nights, been quietly grieving him. The Lin Yao who I am talking to tonight is, by the story you have just told me, a different Lin Yao. I am, in this hour, choosing to accept the different Lin Yao as my brother going forward. The different Lin Yao is welcome. But, Yao, I would like you to know that the boy whose body you are in was, for 16 years, a person I loved. He is not, in some sense, gone. Some part of him is still in the body. I will, as I visit across the coming months, be looking, in your face, for the small moments in which some part of him is visible. The looking is for me, not for you. I would prefer you know. He looked at her across the room. He said, very quietly, May, I understand. The looking is welcome. When you find the small moments, please tell me. I would like to know when he is visible. He deserves, as much as anyone in this new arrangement, the recognition. She looked at him for a long count. She left. He lay down on the wooden cot. He slept. He did not, as she had instructed, activate the tattoo alone that night. Part 2. The 3 months. Chapter 3. The Cadet Branch. The transfer to the Western Cadet Branch was completed on the 10th day, exactly on schedule. The transfer was formally conducted by the Ducal Residence's senior steward, a man named Steward Wu, who had been at the Ducal Residence for 38 years and who was, by the borrowed memory's careful filing, one of the household's very few senior staff who had, across the past 3 days since the assessment, treated the previous Lin Yao with any private kindness. Steward Wu accompanied Lin Yao personally on the transfer. The two of them arrived at the Western Cadet Branch's small stone residence at the 2nd bell of afternoon on the 10th day. The residence was small, 3 rooms, a small kitchen, a small garden with a stone bench. It had been kept, across the past 40 years, for exactly this kind of quiet transfer. It was currently unoccupied. Steward Wu, at the residence's outer gate, said in the flat voice of a senior steward who had spent 38 years managing arrangements of this kind. Young Master Lin, the residence is yours. The stipend is 1 gold piece a month, delivered on the first of each month by the Ducal family's Western courier. The residence's small staff is 1. A woman named Old Chun, who has been the residence's caretaker for 12 years and who will handle the cooking, the cleaning, and the laundry. Old Chun is discreet. She has served 3 previous transferred young masters. All 3, by the Ducal family's records, lived out their remaining years in this residence in quiet, productive scholarship. I would, young master, recommend that you follow the same pattern. Lin Yao looked at Steward Wu. He said, in the calm 16-year-old voice he had been practicing across the past 3 days, Steward Wu, thank you for the recommendation. I intend to follow it. I would like, however, to formally register with the Ducal family, through your office, that I will be receiving my sister Lin May 3 times a week for the standard cadet track advisor visits under the Academy's protocol. The visits will begin at the 7th bell of evening this evening. Will the Ducal family accept the registration? Steward Wu looked at him. He said, in the same flat voice, young master, the cadet track advisor visits are a standard family arrangement. The registration is accepted. I will file it with the Ducal Residence's records office this evening. Lin Yao said, thank you, Steward Wu. Steward Wu bowed at the standard depth of a senior steward departing a cadet branch residence at the end of a transfer. He said, at the bow's bottom, young master. Lin Yao said, yes. Steward Wu said, very quietly, in a voice that carried only to Lin Yao's ear, young master. I have, across 38 years, seen every previous transfer of this kind conducted from the Ducal residence. The 3 previous transferred young masters I mentioned were, by my own private read, all men who, at their transfer, had accepted the family's assessment of them. You are, young master, not accepting it. I would prefer, before I depart, that you know I have registered the non-acceptance. I have, for the record, no intention of reporting the observation to the Ducal residence. I would, however, young master, like to formally offer you the small careful assistance of my own office in whatever quiet arrangements you may, across the coming months, wish to make. My office has, across the past 38 years, developed a small quiet network at the Ducal residence that has, on 3 previous occasions, assisted transferred young masters with small careful matters. The network is available to you if you wish. Simply send word through Old Chun. Old Chun is, young master, a member of the network. Lin Yao looked at Steward Wu in the residence's outer gates late afternoon light. He said, very quietly, Steward Wu. Yes. He said, thank you. The assistance is welcomed. I will, across the coming months, send word through Old Chun when it is required. Steward Wu bowed one final time. He turned and departed the residence. Lin Yao walked into the residence's small central room. Old Chun was waiting inside. She was, at first read, perhaps 60. Small. Gray hair pulled tight. Face weathered from 12 years of running a small residence in the Western District's dust. She wore the plain gray robe of a household caretaker. She bowed at the depth of a household caretaker receiving a new young master. She said, in the small, careful voice, young Master Lin. Lin Yao said, Old Chun. She said, the kitchen has been prepared. The evening meal will be ready at the 6th bell. The tea is on the small table in the sitting room. Your sister Lin may send word by courier at the 1st bell of afternoon that she will attend the residence at the 7th bell of evening. I have prepared the small back study for her visits. Steward Wu has, at the 4th bell of this morning, sent me the formal briefing on my expected duties across the coming 3 years. I have, young master, one further private note to add to the briefing that Steward Wu asked me to convey to you personally. He said, convey. Old Chun said, in the small, careful voice, young master. Steward Wu's private note is that you are, as of this hour, the fourth transferred young master I have served in this residence. The previous 3 were all sent here under the assessment of incomplete cultivation resonance. All 3 were, by my own careful read across 12 years, men whose actual cultivation was substantially greater than their assessments had indicated. All 3, however, chose to spend their remaining years accepting the assessments and living quietly. Steward Wu's private note asked me to inform you, on your arrival, that if you, young master, choose to make a different choice from the previous 3, I have, across 12 years, developed the specific skills required to support the different choice. The specific skills include the careful maintenance of a small residence in which private cultivation practice can be conducted without Ducal family observation, the maintenance of a courier line to the Imperial Academy of Ink Cultivation that does not pass through the Ducal family courier system, and the maintenance of a small careful ledger of household inventories that would not, to a Ducal auditor, indicate that any unusual activities were being conducted at this residence. All 3 specific skills are, young master, available to you if you wish. Lin Yao looked at old Chun in the sitting room's late afternoon light. He said, very quietly, Old Chun. Yes. He said, the 3 specific skills are welcomed. The Academy courier line will be, across the coming 3 months, the specific skill I need most. My sister will explain the arrangement at the 7th bell tonight. Please prepare tea for 2. Old Chun said, the tea will be prepared. And young master. Yes, she said, in the small careful voice. The previous 3 did not, by my private 12-year read, have your specific look this afternoon. The look I am seeing on you, young master, is the look of a man who has already begun making the different choice. I would prefer, for the record, to tell you now, on the first afternoon, that the different choice will have my full support. He looked at her. He said, very quietly, Old Chun. Thank you. She bowed. She went to prepare the tea. Lin Yao sat on the small stone bench in the residence's small garden. He watched the afternoon light move across the small garden's western wall. He thought, in his own head, in the quiet, okay, Lin Yao, day 1 at the cadet branch. Steward Wu has quietly offered a network. Old Chun is part of the network. Lin Mei is coming at the 7th bell. The 3 months of preparation begin tonight. The examination is at the 6th month. The master line track's small private pavilion at the Academy's Eastern Hill has, by May's account, been empty for 200 years. It will not, by every projection I can make of the coming 3 months, be empty by the 7th month. He was, as of the 10th day of his second life, quietly beginning to enjoy the pace of the new life. He watched the afternoon light. At the 7th bell of evening, Lin Mei arrived. The 3 months of preparation began. Chapter 4, by Shui. Lin Mei was not the only visitor to the Western Cadet branch across the 3 months. She was not, in fact, the second visitor. The second visitor arrived on the 14th day of Lin Yao's residence at the branch, at the 3rd bell of afternoon, at the residence's outer gate, without prior arrangement. The visitor was a young woman. She was, by Old Chun's initial gate report to Lin Yao at the 3rd bell and 1 minute, perhaps 17. Tall for her age, dressed in the pale green robe of an Imperial Academy cadet track, first-year student. Carrying, on her collar, the small silver pin of a first-year disciple. Her hair was up in the same plain scholar's knot Lin Mei used. Her outer sleeves, Old Chun reported specifically, carried, on the inside of the left forearm at the standard family tattoo position, the small quiet outline of the Bai family's generational tattoo, which was, by the borrowed memory's careful filing, the Imperial Phoenix. The Bai family was one of the 8 great families. The Bai family's Phoenix tattoo was, by the Empire's standing hierarchy, 3rd in the generational tattoo rankings, behind the Lin Dragon and the Yi Tiger. The young woman at the outer gate was, by every read of Old Chun's careful gate report, the daughter of the Bai family's main line. Lin Yao, in the small back study, where he had been 3 hours into the day's private exercise on the Qilin's second stage activation, set down his brush. He said to old Chun, "Bring her to the sitting room. Bring tea. Tell her I will be with her in 5 minutes. Do not tell her, old Chun, that I am the third son of the Lin house. Say only that the residence's current resident is young Master Lin." Old Chun bowed. She went to the gate. Lin Yao changed his outer robe from the plain gray he had been wearing for the private exercise to the slightly formal dark blue robe Lin May had brought him at the 7th bell of the 5th night for exactly this kind of unexpected visit. He walked to the sitting room. The young woman was on the small guest cushion by the low table. She rose at his entrance. She bowed at the depth of a cadet track first-year student greeting a young master of one of the 8 great families whose formal status was, in her briefing, unclear. She said, in a low, careful voice, "Young Master Lin, I am Bai Shui, first-year cadet track, Imperial Academy. I have come on my own initiative, without prior arrangement, on a matter that I would prefer to discuss in private. Will the young master accept?" Lin Yao looked at her across the sitting room in the late afternoon light. She was, as old Chun had reported, tall for 17. Her face was calm, sharp, with the specific careful attention of a first-year cadet track student who had, in her first 6 months at the academy, been learning to read rooms very quickly. Her eyes were the dark color of a winter river. He said, "Bai Shui, the young master accepts. Sit. Old Chun will bring tea." She sat. She said, in the low, careful voice, without preamble, "Young master, my sister Bai Mei is a second-year cadet track student at the academy. She is, by the academy's records, Lin Mei's assigned study partner for the second-year cultivation practicum. Lin Mei has, across the past 4 days, been telling my sister, in the small, careful, indirect way of 2 cadet track students who have known each other since the first year, that Lin Mei's own younger brother had, at his recent coming of age, produced an unusual result that Lin Mei is now supervising as his cadet track advisor. My sister has, across 4 days, assembled the small, careful, indirect language into a working read. The read is that Lin Mei's younger brother, young Master Lin Yao, has produced a tattoo that is not, young master, the Lin family's standard dragon. My sister told me this, young master, at the 2nd bell of afternoon today. I decided, on hearing it, to come to this residence." Lin Yao looked at her across the low table. He said, in the same low, careful voice she was using, "Bai Shui." "Yes." He said, "Your sister has, across 4 days, assembled a working read from small, indirect language. Your sister is sharp." She said, "My sister is one of the 2 sharpest students in the cadet track second-year cohort. She is, by every read the academy has been quietly making of her, likely to become the cadet track senior graduate of her cohort at the end of the 4th year." He said, "Who is the other sharp one?" Bai Shui looked at him across the low table. She said, very quietly, "Me. In the first-year cohort. I am, by the academy's own quiet read, the first-year student most likely to inherit my sister's projected position at the end of my own 4th year." He said, "That is, Bai Shui, a substantial pair of siblings." She said, "It is. It is also, young master, the specific reason I have come to this residence this afternoon. My sister and I have, since I entered the academy 6 months ago, been quietly discussing the same specific concern about the current generation of cadet track students. The concern is that the academy's senior faculty have, across the past 4 years, since my sister entered, begun to publicly indicate that the current cadet track is producing weaker candidates than any cadet track cohort in the past 2 decades. The senior faculty have been suggesting, in small, careful public remarks, that the cadet track program may, within the coming decade, be quietly reduced in scope or possibly closed. My sister and I have, in the past year, been quietly worried about the closure. If the cadet track closes, my sister will graduate with a degraded credential, and I will not graduate at all. The closure would end both of our futures at the academy. She paused. She said, "Young master, if your coming of ink has produced a tattoo that is, by the small indirect language my sister has been assembling, unusual, and if the tattoo is unusual in the specific direction I am, from your face's response to my earlier sentences, beginning to think it might be unusual in, then your entry into the academy at the coming 6th-month examinations would be, young master, the specific event that reverses the senior faculty's public read of the cadet track. A single cadet track student in the coming intake who bears an unusual tattoo of the right kind would be, by every read of the academy's internal politics, enough to reverse a decade of quiet concerns. My sister and I would, in the same reversal, be preserved." She paused. She said, "I am, young master, coming to this residence at the 3rd bell of afternoon on the 14th day of your transfer to offer you the specific assistance my sister and I can provide across the coming 3 months, in exchange for the specific request that when you enter the academy at the 6th month, you enter through the cadet track examination rather than through any alternative admissions channel. I know, young master, from my sister's careful indirect language, that there may be an alternative channel available to you. I am asking you not to use it. I am asking you to use the cadet track instead. In exchange, my sister and I will provide the coming 3 months of preparation at the specific technical level that only a 4th-year mainliner projected cadet track student and a 1st-year Verstinkehort cadet track student can jointly provide. The preparation will, young master, be substantially more effective than any preparation Lin Mei alone can offer." Lin Yao looked at Bai Shui across the low table for a very long count. He said, in the low, careful voice, "Bai Shui." "Yes," he said, "your read of me is correct in every particular. My coming of ink produced an unusual tattoo. The alternative channel exists. Lin Mei described it to me on the night of my 5th day. I have, for the past 9 days, been quietly weighing the alternative channel against the cadet track. The weighing was, until this afternoon, tipping toward the alternative because the alternative provides, by my sister's account, a substantial personal position that the cadet track does not. I am, in the past 10 minutes, reconsidering. The specific reconsideration is that the alternative channel's personal position is worth less to me than the specific outcome you have just described, which is the preservation of a 2-decade academy program and the futures of 2 cadet track students who I have, in a 15-minute conversation, come to consider the sort of people I would prefer to have as future colleagues. I am, Bai Shui, accepting the exchange. I will enter through the cadet track. In exchange, I would ask you and your sister to conduct the preparation across the coming 3 months in coordination with Lin Mei. I would also ask, Bai Shui, one further thing." She said, "Ask." He said, "Bai Shui, if I enter through the cadet track and, as I expect I will, advance rapidly across the following years, my rapid advancement will attract attention from the great family's senior political networks. The attention will include, by my own honest projection, attempts to remove me from the academy, quietly or otherwise. The attempts will be, by the 8 great families' standing patterns, the specific responsibility of the political networks that stand to lose from my rise. I will need, across those years, a small quiet group of academy peers who can help me identify and manage those attempts before they succeed. The small quiet group will need to include, by my honest projection, at least 2 cadet track students of the Topofcohort caliber. I am asking, Bai Shui, whether you and your sister would be willing to be the first 2 members of that small quiet group." She looked at him across the low table. She said, very quietly, "Young master." "Yes," she said, "my sister and I have, for the past 2 years, been quietly hoping to be part of exactly this kind of arrangement. We have not, before this afternoon, had any candidate at the academy who our own political position could support. You are, in this hour, the candidate. The answer is, young master, yes. He said, Bai Shui. Yes. He said, thank you. She said, the 3 months of preparation begin tonight. My sister will accompany me to the residence this evening at the 7th bell, jointly with Lin Mei. The 4 of us will draft the coming 3-month schedule. Will that arrangement be acceptable? He said, the arrangement will be acceptable. She rose from the small guest cushion. She bowed. She left. Lin Yao sat in the sitting room in the late afternoon light for a long, careful count after she was gone. He said, in his own head at the low, quiet volume, okay. Day 14. Cadet track chosen. Bai Shui and Bai Mei added. Small quiet group at 3. Preparation continuing. He said, in the same low volume. This is going better than I had projected. Old Chun, from the doorway, said very quietly, young master. He looked up. She said, the tea. It has cooled. Would the young master like fresh? He said, fresh. Please. And old Chun. Yes. He said, tonight at the 7th bell, 3 visitors. Not 1. Please prepare the sitting room and the small back study to accommodate a working session of 4. She bowed. She went. The evening session ran until the 2nd bell of morning. By the 2nd bell, the coming 3 months of preparation had been jointly drafted. By the coming 6th month, the plan projected, Lin Yao would take the cadet track examination and enter the academy as a first-year cadet track student. The academy would, by the plan's operations across the following 4 years, be quietly reshaped around the small, quiet group's coordinated presence. The Bai sisters would preserve their futures. Lin Mei would, at graduation, take up her projected position as the cadet track senior graduate of her cohort. Lin Yao would, at his own graduation 4 years later, quietly reveal the Qilin at the graduation ceremony's traditional final year demonstration, the specific ceremony at which the Academy's most senior students were formally presented to the Imperial court. The reveal at the graduation ceremony would, by Lin Mei's careful projection, produce exactly the specific political cover Duke Lin Bo would need to publicly reverse the family assessment and restore Lin Yao to the main line. The reveal would also, by the same projection, place Lin Yao, at 20, in the position the Academy's founding statutes had reserved for 200 years for the Masterline track, without having gone through the Masterline track at all. The bypass would, as Lin Mei quietly noted at the 2nd bell of morning at the closing of the session, be a substantially more politically stable position than the Masterline track itself, because it would place Lin Yao in the position by the choice of the Academy's cadet track program and the Imperial Court's own recognition, rather than by the automatic operation of the founding statutes. The bypass would, in the same operation, preserve the Bai sisters, preserve Lin Mei's cadet track cohort, and quietly return the Qilin to public recognition in the specific way that would maximize the Qilin's positive effect on the country's cultivation politics across the following century. At the 2nd bell of morning, the 4 of them drank the last of the tea in the small sitting room in the Western Cadet Branch's small residence. Lin Mei, at the low table, said in her working academy voice, "The plan is settled. The 3 months begin tomorrow at the 7th bell of evening. Same room, same tea. Bai Shui and Bai Mei will attend twice a week. I will attend 3 times. We will alternate the days across the schedule. Old Chun will handle the coordination through the small Steward Wu network. Any questions?" Nobody had questions. They drank the last of the tea. The 3 visitors left. Lin Yao went to bed at the 3rd bell of morning. He slept better than he had in either of his lives. Chapter 5. The Examination. The 3 months passed on schedule. Lin Yao, under the joint supervision of Lin Mei, Bai Mei, and Bai Shui, with occasional consultation from Bai Mei's own senior cadet track advisor at the academy, who had been quietly brought in at the 2nd month, advanced across the 3 months from the 2nd stage Qilin activation to the 7th stage. The 7th stage activation was, by the standard academy classification, the specific activation level required for a cadet track second-year student. He had reached it at 3 months. He had, in 3 months of cadet track coach practice, advanced through the equivalent of 18 months of standard academy first-year training, plus 3 months of second-year training. The 3 sisters, Lin Mei and the Bai sisters, who had, across the 3 months, quietly settled into calling themselves the 3 sisters in the sitting room's late working evenings, had, at the end of the 3rd month, jointly assessed that Lin Yao was ready for the cadet track examination at a level that would place him, at his entrance, at approximately the top 10 students of the incoming first-year cohort of 42. The top 10 placement would, by their joint projection, establish him as a strong first year without triggering the specific attention that a top 3 placement would trigger from the Academy's senior faculty. The joint projection was, as of the 3rd month's end, the operational target. The examination was held on the 6th day of the 6th month at the Academy's Central Examination Hall. Lin Yao arrived at the hall at the 2nd bell of afternoon. The examination had 2 components, a written technical component that ran for 4 hours in the morning and a live cultivation demonstration component that ran across the afternoon and produced the specific rank placement assessment. He completed the written component at the top of the incoming cohort's 50 candidates. He conducted the live cultivation demonstration at the 7th bell of afternoon, in the small demonstration chamber, in front of the standard cadet track admissions panel of 5 senior instructors. The demonstration required him to activate his family tattoo, hold the activation for a specific 11-minute technical exercise, and then deactivate on command. He did all 3. The tattoo he displayed to the admissions panel was the Qilin at the 7th stage of activation. The 5 senior instructors, across the 11 minutes, moved through the standard sequence of professional instructor expressions that range from routine attention to complete stillness to, at the 11-minute mark's close, the specific, quiet, focused attention of 5 senior instructors who had, in the past 11 minutes, watched a first-year candidate demonstrate a tattoo they had never, in any of their combined years of academy service, seen before in a cadet track examination. The senior of the 5, a woman named Master Song, whom Lin Mei had, on the 2nd night, identified as her own cohort's senior instructor and as a Yun family cadet track graduate herself, set down her observation brush. She said, in the flat professional voice of a senior instructor conducting a cadet track examination, candidate Lin Yao. He said, in the 16-year-old voice, Master. She said, the tattoo you have demonstrated is not, for the record, the standard Lin family generational tattoo of the Imperial dragon. He said, it is not, Master. She said, the tattoo you have demonstrated is, by the Imperial Academy's founding statutes, a formed Qilin of the 7th stage of activation. He said, yes, Master. She said, the Qilin has been classified, by the same statutes, as an extinct pattern for the past 470 years. He said, yes, Master. She said, you are, candidate, 16 years old. You have, in the past 3 months, by the cadet track program's records of your preparation, advanced from the 2nd stage of activation to the 7th under the private supervision of your sister Lin Mei and 2 bi-family cadet track students. The advancement is, by every measure of the Academy's standard training rate, impossible. It has, however, happened. He said, yes, Master. Master Song looked at the 4 other members of the panel. The 4 other members had, across the 11 minutes, arrived at their own quiet joint conclusion. The 4 indicated the conclusion to Master Song by a small joint nod. Master Song looked back at Lin Yao. She said, in the same flat professional voice, candidate Lin Yao. The cadet track admissions panel is, as of this hour, admitting you to the cadet track first-year cohort at the top-ranked position of the incoming 42 students. The panel will, in addition, file a formal special note report to the Academy's senior faculty regarding the tattoo you have demonstrated. The report will not, by the panel's decision, trigger the automatic master line track admissions process. The panel will instead recommend, at the senior faculty's next meeting in 3 days, that the master line track process be quietly waived on the specific ground that the candidate has, of his own choice, entered through the cadet track. The recommendation will be, candidate, accepted by the senior faculty. The Academy will, in the following week, communicate to your father Duke Lin Yao that his third son has been admitted to the cadet track at the top-ranked position and that the Academy has, in the same admission, formally reversed the Ducal family's assessment of incomplete cultivation resonance. The formal reversal will require Duke Lin Yao to publicly return you to the main line within the standard Imperial Court protocol of 30 days. She paused. She said, Candidate Lin Yao, welcome to the Academy. Your entry ceremony is on the 15th day of the 7th month. You will attend in the standard first-year cadet track uniform. Your assigned dormitory room is in the cadet track's East Dormitory, room 14. Your cadet track advisor for the coming year will be, by the panel's joint decision this afternoon, your sister Lin Mei, who has, across the past 3 months, demonstrated by your preparation that she is the specific instructor most qualified to continue your training. Are there questions? Lin Yao said, No questions, master. She said, The examination is concluded. You may withdraw. He bowed at the standard depth of a cadet track candidate departing the examination. He left the small demonstration chamber. In the outer corridor, at 3 paces from the chamber's outer door, Lin Mei was waiting. She said, in the small, careful voice, Yao. He said, in the 16-year-old voice, Mei. She said, How did it go? He said, Top-ranked. Cadet track first year. The panel is recommending a quiet waiver on the master line track process. The Ducal family will receive formal notice in a week. Lin Mei looked at him for a long count in the corridor's afternoon light. She said, very quietly, Yao. Yes. She said, You are, as of this afternoon, going to be admitted to the Academy at the top of your cohort. Our father will, as of the following week, be required by the Imperial Court's protocol to publicly reverse the Ducal family assessment and restore you to the main line. You will, as of the 7th month, be back at the Ducal residence as the Ducal family's third son, and you will be, in addition, an Academy first year at the top of the cadet track. He said, Yes. She said, That is, Yao, a great deal. He said, It is. She looked at him. She said, How do you feel? He looked at her in the corridor's afternoon light. He said, very quietly, Mei, I feel, as I have not felt in either of my lives, that the small, careful people around me have arranged the coming years in a shape that I am, for the first time in 28 years, actually looking forward to living inside. She said, Yao. He said, Yes. She said, Come home. Bai Shui and Bai Mei are at the residence. Old Chun has made the specific plum wine dinner she has been preparing for the past 4 days for the specific outcome you have just delivered. The 4 of us will eat together at the 7th bell. Tomorrow you will formally begin the transition back to the Ducal residence. The following week you will be publicly restored. He said, Mei. Yes. He said, Thank you. For the 3 months. For the night at the 7th bell of the 5th day. For every specific thing you have done since the 3rd bell of morning on the day I told you the story. She looked at him. She said, very quietly, Yao, I am your older sister. This is what an older sister, for the record, does. She turned. She walked with him back through the Academy's central corridor to the western gate. At the western gate, at the exit to the Imperial City's main thoroughfare, in the late afternoon light of the 6th day of the 6th month of Lin Yao's second life in this world, she stopped. She looked at him. She said, in a voice that was different from the voice she had been using for 3 months, Yao. He said, Mei. She said, There is, for the record, one further thing I would like to say. It is not about the examination. It is not about the Academy. It is about, Yao, the 3 months we have just spent together. He looked at her in the western gate's afternoon light. He said, very quietly, May. Say it. She said, in the same different voice. Yao. Across the 3 months, I have been reading you, in the small quiet study sessions in the back room of the Western Cadet Branch, as a person I did not, until 3 months ago, actually know. The Lin Yao I grew up with was, for 16 years, the small quiet third son of my father's house. The Lin Yao across the small back study table these past 3 months has been a different person. I have, across the 3 months, become quietly attached to the different person in a way that is not Yao, the way an older sister is attached to a younger brother. The attachment is, I am telling you plainly, in the Western Gate's afternoon light, the way one careful adult becomes attached to another. I am not asking you, Yao, to respond to the attachment today. I am, as of this afternoon, informing you of it, because the coming years at the Academy will require, from both of us, a shared understanding of what our working partnership actually is. I would prefer, before the working partnership begins, that the understanding be shared. If, Yao, the attachment is not, on your side, reciprocated, we will continue as older sister and younger brother in the shape we have always had, and I will manage. If it is reciprocated, the reciprocation is welcome. Either answer, from you, is acceptable. He looked at her in the Western Gate's afternoon light. He said, very quietly, May. She said, yes. He said, the attachment is reciprocated. She said, in the same different voice, Yao. Yes. She said, good. She did not, at the Western Gate, in the afternoon light of a public thoroughfare in the Imperial city, do any of the more visible things that a woman who had just received the answer she had received might have done in a private room. She did, very quietly, at the shoulder of his outer robe, pressed 2 fingers to the fabric for approximately 2 seconds. Then she stepped back. She said, in her working academy voice, the dinner is at the 7th bell. Old Chun is expecting us. The Bai sisters will be there. We, as of this afternoon, have a plan to celebrate. He said, the dinner is welcomed. They walked back to the Western Cadet Branch together in the afternoon light. At the residence, Bai Shui and Bai Mei were already at the sitting room table with Old Chun. The plum wine was ready. The 4 of them ate together at the 7th bell. The dinner ran past the 2nd bell of morning. By the 2nd bell, Bai Shui had, in the small, careful, private way of a first-year Topofcohort cadet track student who had, across 3 months, quietly reached her own private read of the situation, raised her own separate small conversation with Lin Yao in the residence's small garden, while Bai Mei and Lin Mei and Old Chun cleared the table. Bai Shui's conversation was the same conversation Lin Mei had raised at the Western Gate. Bai Shui's conversation ended at the same answer. By the 3rd bell of morning of the 7th day of the 6th month, the small, quiet 3-person configuration at the Western Cadet Branch had, by the joint quiet decision of Lin Mei, Bai Shui, and Lin Yao, become an arrangement all 3 of them had privately been preparing for across the past 3 months. Bai Mei, the 4th adult in the residence's inner circle, had, at the 3rd bell, quietly raised her own separate question with Lin Yao at the residence's outer gate as the Bai sisters were leaving. Her question was, with the small, careful additional consideration that she was a 4th-year student and did not want to disrupt the coming year's academy dynamics. The same question. The same answer was given. By the 4th bell of morning of the 7th day of the 6th month, the small, quiet configuration at the Western Cadet Branch was the settled configuration of 4. The plan for the following week was, as it had been at the 7th bell of the 5th night 3 months ago, that Lin Yao would be publicly restored to the main line at the Ducal residence, would begin his first year at the academy on the 15th day of the 7th month, and would, across the following 4 years, quietly reshape the academy and the Ducal family and the broader country's ink cultivation politics in the specific coordinated pattern the 4 of them had drafted at the 2nd bell of morning. The public restoration to the main line took place on the 15th day of the 6th month, exactly on schedule. Duke Lin Bo, as Lin Mei had projected, publicly reversed the Ducal family assessment, publicly presented the Qilin's return as the Lin house's great achievement in the current generation, and quietly congratulated his third son at the private family reception at the residence's central hall on the reception's closing evening. Lin Yao's older brother Lin Su, the second son, spent the reception's closing evening at the reception's far end, in the small, careful silence of a second son whose recently satisfied position at the Ducal family's second son line had, in the past week, been reorganized in a way he had not, for the record, been prepared for. Lin Yao's oldest brother Lin Feng, the first son and heir, spent the same closing evening at Lin Yao's shoulder, in the small, careful public warmth of an oldest brother who had, on hearing the reversal, decided very quickly that his younger brother's return to the family with the Qilin was, by every measure the oldest brother's own political intelligence could apply to it, the specific event that would most secure the Lin family's position at the imperial court for the coming generation, and had thus decided to publicly and privately welcome his brother's return with the small, careful loudness of a first son who wanted every senior member of the extended family to see him welcoming it. The extended family took the cue. The extended family welcomed Lin Yao back to the main line at the closing reception with the specific formal warmth of an extended family that had, in the past week, quietly updated its red of the third son. The 6 senior tattoo masters of the extended family, who had all, 3 months ago, signed the assessment of malformed dragon, were not present at the closing reception. They had all, by Old Chun's small quiet report to Lin Yao at the closing reception's third bell of evening, through the Steward Wu network, been formally requested by Duke Lin Bo to submit their retirement papers on the 14th day of the 6th month, in the small, careful, private way that ducal families manage the removal of senior staff whose recent professional judgments had been publicly reversed. The 6 senior tattoo masters were retired by the end of the 6th month. They were replaced, by Duke Lin Bo's careful appointment, by 6 new senior tattoo masters who had been quietly recommended by Lin Mei from a list of academy graduates she had been maintaining for the past year for exactly this kind of eventual reorganization. The new 6 were, by every measure of Lin Mei's own careful selection, the sort of senior tattoo masters who would, across the following 20 years, quietly professionalize the Lin family's coming-of-age assessments to a standard the family's previous 6 had not maintained. By the 15th day of the 7th month, Lin Yao, the ducal family's third son, formally restored to the main line, bearer of the Qilin, top-ranked incoming first-year cadet track student at the Imperial Academy of Ink Cultivation, walked through the academy's western gate for the first day of the first year, in the pale green robe of the cadet track first-year cohort, with the small silver pin of a first-year disciple at his collar, with Lin Mei at his shoulder as his cadet track advisor, and with Bai Shui and Bai Mei already waiting at the first-year cohort's assembly courtyard as his small, quiet group's coordinated welcome. The 4 of them, at the assembly courtyard's north corner, at the 5th bell of morning of the 15th day of the 7th month, stood together as the incoming first-year cohort of 42 students filed into their assigned positions for the entrance ceremony. Lin Yao, at his top-ranked position at the cohort's front, looked back once at the 3 women at the assembly courtyard's north corner. They, all 3, looked back at him. None of them, at the 5th bell of morning of the entrance ceremony, needed to say anything. The entrance ceremony began. The academy's 4 years began. The small, quiet group's coordinated work, across those 4 years and across the following decades of Lin Yao's second life, began. End of Book 1.